Good morning, everybody. This is Carol Razzle from Elderwerks. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate you coming in and joining our presentation for the day, Beating the Holiday Blues. We know you're going to find it very interesting and informative. In addition to that, you'll have a nice opportunity to hear and meet our speaker, who is our training specialist and nurse, Chris Petrik. As you know, at Elderwerks, we help seniors and families and professionals finding any kind of services. In addition to that, we advocate for everyone. And in addition to advocating, we help you with housing problems or searches. For seniors, we help you also for seniors needing in-home care at home, which we're getting a great many requests on that now with everything that's going on. Elder law attorneys, basically any kind of services you need. We are very much pro-education, which is one of the things that brings us to all of our wonderful presentations. So we thank you very much for coming this morning. If you have questions or concerns after this, I have my information is online. I'll put on my screen, and I'll also put it in the chat box. If you have questions during this regarding the presentation, please put them in the chat box, and Chris will answer them after that, after the presentation. So Chris Petrik will start now. Chris, go ahead, our nurse and training specialist, and thanks so much for attending today.
Thank you, Carol. Hi, everyone. As Carol said, my name is Chris Petrik, and I'm the training specialist for Elderwerks. I'm a registered nurse. I've been in healthcare for over 40 years. I say that, it's kind of a scary number, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. And the last 15 years, I have been with continuing care retirement communities as training and development and training associates about dementia, as well as working with older adults and educating them on various different things. So we have this forum called Ask the Nurse. And what I did, just so you know, as you're looking ahead, we're trying this to see how it works. And so what I've done is I've set up some topics for the upcoming year. However, if we have recommendations or suggestions from our groups that join us that they'd like to be discussed, we will add those to the list. So just so you know, what's coming up for December is a positive approach to the new year. And then in January, and that in December, we'll talk about the COVID conditions and isolation, getting the best of you, the importance of socialization on your brain, and making commitments to keep yourself safe and happy. And then in January, my topic is what can I do when Arthur comes to visit? My dad, who had arthritis, used to say Arthur's visiting today. So that's why I use that in my topic. And it talks about arthritis, the different types of arthritis, dealing with arthritis, different medications. And then February is Heart Healthy Month. So we'll be talking about heart issues. And then March, the importance of eye health. And in April, emergency preparedness. So that's what I have lined up. But again, if there's any hearty suggestions out there that you'd like to discuss, I can certainly bring those to the forum as well. Today, I thought I'd talk about beating the holiday blues. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my video off so you're not distracted by that. But we're going to talk about the holiday blues today, because there's a lot of people that the holidays are not the happiest time of the year. So typically October, November, and December are the most difficult, emotionally loaded quarter of the year. And you may ask yourself, why is that? But if you look at a period of 3 months, we have Halloween, which may or may not affect some of you. Thanksgiving, which affects almost everybody. And then you have your own separate cultural holidays in here. And I didn't have enough room, so I'm not trying to be culturally incompetent here. But there's the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, and the Christian holiday of Christmas, and then Kwanzaa. And I know the Sikh culture has Diwali. So there's a lot of celebrating that goes on between Halloween and December 31st, when we end the year with New Year. With that comes a lot of commitment, a lot of anxiety, and some distress for people. It's really the time of year like no other. More than any other time, this particular string of holidays, along with seasonal changes, brings a host of mixed emotions. We also have to remember that there's people out there that suffer from seasonal depression. And that usually starts this time of year, and it has to do with your circadian rhythms and the light outside. A lot of people have learned to combat with getting circadian rhythm lights or seasonal lights in their homes to combat that seasonal depression. But there are people that suffer from that, and I'm sure I was not alone when we changed the clocks back 2 weekends ago, because it certainly means that every day it's getting darker sooner, and that adds to our anxiety and our depression as well. We know that every holiday brings on emotional highs and lows, but with the holidays clustered so closely, we have to cope with them, and there's little recovery time in between. If you are someone who sponsors or hosts any of these holidays, there's a lot of planning and preparation. If you're someone who doesn't, but is obligated to go to different places on those holidays and tries to meet those obligations, it can be fatiguing and difficult to make all those commitments without any recovery time in between. Also, our emotions interact with our brain, and if we don't attend to what's going on, we end up losing sight of some of those smart strategies to help reset that balance. So we need to have that emotional balance, and if we don't practice that emotional balance kind of throughout the year and plan ahead and think about this time of year, our brain will kind of go along with that depression part of it or the anxiety part of it. And because it elevates the fight or flight in our brain, we lose track of how to really cope with those. So we have to learn how to reset. And that's what you need that recovery time for in between those holidays. So to manage the stress of the holidays, we need some sense of control. And that control is being able to choose what is personally important to us and to those that we care about around us. And so, there's so much negativity about being in control that we tend not want to do that. But I think this is a time of year that we do need to have a little bit of control. We also need some predictability, and that predictability is being able to identify outcomes you would like to see for the holidays. And then optimism and looking to the positive, that no matter how each holiday turns out this year, know that with a positive attitude and optimism, we're going to cope a little bit better. This, when I've done this program before, and when I did this, it was a longer program, different than what I'm presenting today, but it was done at a time where I never even heard of COVID-19. In healthcare, you always do worry about the next virus, but I, as well as many of you out there, did not ever think we would experience a pandemic like they did back in the early 1900s. And so, of course, that's something that we'll need to address today. And, one of the ways we can address that now a little bit is looking at these 3 points and looking at what kind of control do you have over the holidays, and what control don't you have? Well, we know we don't have control over the numbers, and every day we wake up and we hear those numbers and they're going higher and higher. And every time they do that, your anxiety goes higher and higher. And I don't know if anybody out there remembers back in the 70s, 60s and 70s when, of course, the social media wasn't as finessed as it is today. But I can remember as a young adult, a teenager actually, on the 10:30 news, they always gave you the body bag count from Vietnam. And I remember even back then the anxiety that I felt when they were telling us every day how much, how much we lost that day. And, although those numbers for COVID-19 are important, do we need to hear it every day? And so that's one thing that you have control over, is if that's causing you stress, maybe only listen to the beginning of the news, because it always comes at the beginning of the news. Turn in, 10 minutes later and wait till Friday to hear the numbers. That way you're not feeling anxious all week. And the other part of that control is doing what people are asking, people in a position of knowledge are asking you to do to prepare. And I'm sure the people out there, 99% of you are doing what you can, but there's going to be that 1% that doesn't. And we have to understand we have no control over that. We also don't have control over how this virus is going to impact our holidays. So what we can do is control the things that we can about our holidays. And that's where predictability comes in. We need to predict. And like I said, being able to identify outcomes that you'd like to see for the holidays. And I was just sharing with my team members, I had this conversation with my daughter last night for Thanksgiving. I have one son that lives on the south side. He has 3 kids and they celebrate their Thanksgiving out there. So I don't worry about them. But my son, who's a firefighter, only gets like every other Thanksgiving off. And then I have my daughter. So they each have 2 children. So that would be 4 adults and 4 children in my house for Thanksgiving. What does that mean? Can we social distance? Can we wear masks? And so I had to have the control if it's at my house. So I said, we need to make our decisions based on this. If we have Thanksgiving, our windows will be open because you need to get that airflow in there. I will put all the extensions in the dining room table and I will set up a card table so we are sitting at, a reasonable space apart. I will be serving the food only. So not everybody is hovering over the meal. So it won't be served, it'll be served, plated. So there's less chance for contact. We will need to wear masks in the house when we're not eating. And so that's my control, but their control is making the decision on whether they want to come or not. And I said, we don't have to make the decision today. We need to make the decision when I need to go shopping for food. So our predictability is what's Thanksgiving going to look like for us? And it could either be that way, or we could just eat at our own houses and Zoom. The optimism is that either way, we know that this is going to be gone by next year. The optimism is that I know that at some point during the day, I will get to see all of them, even if it's on Zoom, and we can connect that way. So giving me those sense of control, predictability, and optimism makes me feel better about what's going to happen. The reasonable outcome is I know Thanksgiving is not going to be like Thanksgiving any other year we've ever had. That's just how it's going to happen. Sometimes you can't even predict that. Back about 20 years ago, like I said, I worked in a hospital and I worked every Thanksgiving. That was my holiday that I had to work for many, many years. We always had Thanksgiving lunch, and then I would move on to my PM shift. And the one Thanksgiving that I had off, my mother-in-law had a stroke and ended up in ICU. And we were told that, her time was limited to go home and get the turkey out of the oven and end our Thanksgiving at the hospital. So sometimes we can't predict what's going to happen, but I think we can safely look at some of that control, predictability, and optimism. So some of the causes of holiday blues is that we're not feeling how we're supposed to feel. I think culturally, societally, people have told us that we should be happy around the holidays. There are people that dread the holidays for many different reasons. They may have family issues. They may have ideas of they feel lonely or isolated because they may be the only family member that lives in this area. They may have gift anxiety. Maybe they are, whoops, sorry, let me go back. They may have problems purchasing gifts for people because of finances. You know, we know that grudges and family feuds tend to surface around the holidays, whether those people who are causing those show up or not. They always tend to be conversed about. Some people feel guilty over doing well while others lack basic services and needs. Maybe you have feelings that you've not accomplished what you've set out to do for the holidays or for life. You may have greater expectations for the holidays than actually occur. Again, that's really in your control. And going back to Thanksgiving, I have absolutely no expectations on how this holiday is going to work out. Being reminded of our economic or social situation, and I think for Thanksgiving, a lot of us have felt that because of the social isolation. But there's many people out there that have lost their jobs and you know, have to get in food lines to get food. So what does Thanksgiving look like for them? And again, that stay-at-home mandate, we're going to be unable to celebrate as we normally do. Now, there has not been a stay-at-home mandate, but if you've watched TV and if you've watched, you know, around 2:30, 3 o'clock, if Pritzker, which I really don't watch that for him, I watch it more for Dr. Ngassi to get an update on what's going on. They are not at this point having a mandate, but yesterday IDPH and the state of Illinois, and I'm sure you heard it on the news, said we want people to stay home as much as possible. If you can work from home, work from home. If you can, you know, just go out for essentials. So, you know, we have to think about what they're asking of us. And if we can do this and wear our masks, wash our hands, do everything, maybe Christmas will look a tad better. I'm not quite sure. You know, what I'm afraid of is that because there's 2 vaccines on the horizon, that people are going to go haywire and say, well, I can do what I want because I'm going to get a vaccine. What we need to remember is that the vaccines that are being made, kind of digressing here, but the vaccines that are being made are only 90% proof. So that means 10% of the people who get the vaccine will not be covered. Okay, flu is about 50%. The influenza vaccine is about 50%. So it is doing about 40% better than that. However, we have to keep in mind that there's a 10% on top of that, which there are anti-vaxxers who don't want to get vaccines, who will refuse. And then there's people who will say, I'm not going to get a vaccine until I know that other people have gotten them and haven't had adverse effects. So staying home as much as you can right now and not being able to celebrate like we normally do are going to be some issues that we may have to deal with. So it's going to be a little bit different this year than it has been in years past. What we do know that chronic stress causes burnout, and burnout and stress cause illness. Whoops, and I just see a typo there. Sorry, everybody. And you know where illness gets us. So what happens when we have burnout? It causes a lot of release of those hormones and chemicals in our body that are used for fight or flight. And when they're used for fight or flight, that's okay. But when they're released, when this cortisol is released in our body and it's not used, it gets stored. And it gets stored in areas that aren't good for us, like our bellies. And that's why people who are very stressed tend to gain weight more in their abdomen than any place else, because that's where the cortisol is stored. And it actually will change the chemicals in the synapses and the neurons in your brain. So our goal is not to have any stress, so we don't have burnout, so we don't get sick. Because getting sick, physically sick, is a definite side effect. It lowers our immune system, it increases our inflammatory processes, so it's really important to stay healthy. So, what are ways to keep your emotional balance? Give yourself and others permission to feel less than perfect. It's okay not to be happy about any of this. I'm not happy, but I'm going to cope with it. This is kind of the lot we've been given right now. It's out of my control, so I'm going to do the best that I can. My husband and I even had a conversation about putting up our Christmas tree this year, because if we don't have the holidays, who's going to enjoy it? And we decided that it will get us in the holiday spirit. And even though we may not be able to have our family share in that, we also will be able to keep ourselves optimistic. We also are planning ahead. We've talked to our family about having a Christmas in July party when this is all over with. And because I have a very big extended family and we all get together on Christmas Day, my sisters and their children and their grandchildren. So when we're all together, and we usually do this every Christmas at my nephew's house, there's about 43 people. Well, we know we're not doing that this year, so I'm not putting my Christmas tree very far away, and we're pulling it out in July, and we're going to have a big Christmas celebration in July. So we'll all be together. We may not exchange presents, but we'll all be together and enjoy our holiday just 6 months later. So we need to give ourselves permission to feel less than perfect. We have to really be open to someone that we can trust, a friend or a family member, and let them know how we're feeling, because the other person may be feeling the same way, and you've made a connection with someone, and you can have that open conversation. During this time, it's very important to keep a routine. Routines make us feel safe. And so at this time of year, when we feel unsafe in so many other ways, we need to really keep that routine. I know that the first part of the shutdown, I found myself sleeping in a little bit more, and to kind of throw off my routine. And I needed to think about getting back to the time that I normally get up, because I needed to have breakfast about the same time, take my medicine at the same time, eat lunch at the same time, because that routine made me feel like I had control. We want to minimize or avoid alcohol and drugs. I'm not saying not to have that celebratory cocktail or glug or sangria or whatever you choose to have. Taking something at night to sleep typically is not a good thing to do, especially for older adults, unless it's prescribed by a doctor for a reason. But buying something over the counter usually will cause you more problems. I know some people choose Benadryl to get themselves to sleep at night, and that's really not a good thing for older adults to be taking, because it causes a lot of disruption in the brain for you. So again, choose wisely on those. Maybe instead of taking a medication to sleep at night, maybe doing some meditation before you go to sleep, or doing some self-care. And it's important to do self-care. Take care of yourself. Find out what makes you feel good and practice that. If it means, baking, if it means that would not be a good thing for me, but some people love to bake and they feel relaxed when they do that, that's fine. But take care of yourself. As I learned very young, when I first became a mother, the mother baby nurse told me, unless you take care of yourself, you can't take care of your children. I came from a very strict Italian Catholic family where moms do for everybody else before they do for themselves. So that was a hard lesson for me to learn. But I learned, and it's true, if you don't take care of yourself, especially for the people out there who are caregivers for others, take care of yourself first, and then you can take better care of the other people you're caring for. Look at your unhappy feelings logically. If you're unhappy about the holidays, how they're turning out because of COVID, look at that logically. Again, there's some things that we have control over, and there are other things that we don't have control over. That doesn't mean I can't be unhappy about it. Admit that you're unhappy, say, verbalize it. I don't like how this is going. However, my choice is I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to practice self-care, give myself a little more attention, and give attention to the things that you really appreciate. Engage in prayer and meditation. However you find the spirit, it doesn't have to be related to religion, but if you're a religious person and prayer works for you, that's wonderful. Always say a prayer for me. I could always use them. But you can meditate and just become focused. Do some positive affirmations. If you go online, you can write and just type in positive affirmations for yoga or meditation. And you can pull out what works for you. And you can say those and use them as what we call mantras. And as you're sitting there relaxing at night before you go to bed, you can say those mantras. And so that will help you relax. Taking nice deep breaths will also help you relax. Do some optimistic self-talk. Things like, I'm glad I'm not handling things this year like I did last year. Maybe you didn't do such a good job last year of handling that. And so, this year might be obviously a challenge for you, but maybe in a different way. This year I can prepare better so I won't fall victim to the holiday blues the way I've done in the past. And I urge you to really start considering how you're going to handle the holidays now, and prepare for A, how it's going to be handled, B, how you're going to feel about it, and admit those feelings. I'm not happy about this. Out of my control. What's in my control? Make a list of the things that are in your control and work on that list. Don't make a list of the things that are out of your control, or make those and decide that you're going to throw that list away because it just doesn't make sense to dwell on this. The next one is, this year can be better, less stressful, or I can manage the stress better than I did last year. There's that old saying, when you know better, I think it's Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. And that is so true. Every time we live a little bit longer, we learn a little bit more about ourselves. And so how we handle stress, think about how you handle stress when you were younger versus now. And, you really have to kind of think about how you want to be able to handle that. And then next year will be better than this year. So again, think about what you're going to do this year versus next year. And then again, most important, keep a healthy perspective and look for the brighter side of the holiday. So that's kind of it. I'll open it for questions. And I know that many of you have felt this way, and so I want you to be able to get out and breathe that fresh air while you can, because it's important to do that.